So, hello everyone on the call. I'll share a little bit about Brink, since I'm not sure how familiar members of the audience are, but really appreciate you joining us today. Brink is an accelerator, and it runs 13 programs globally across almost a dozen offices, investing in the way people feel, live, eat, and move. Inside of China, we have 3 offices and more than 20 staff on the ground, and we run 2 food tech accelerator programs, and we've invested in approximately 30 companies across cellular agriculture, precision fermentation, and plant-based meat analogs, as well as novel ingredients. Brink also has other verticals that it invests in, including IoT, medtech, etc. These are some of the offices where we're operating globally, including in China, India, Southeast Asia, Australia, and Eastern Europe. And this is a bit of a snapshot of some of the companies in which we've invested, with more than 150 startup investments from all around the world. And these are some of our food tech investments, including several in China. When we do invest, we try to not only provide capital, but also add specific value add, including connectivity with follow-on sources of capital, as well as strategic partnerships that to help our portfolio companies grow. Inside of China, we currently have 2 food tech focused acceleration programs, one focused on China's Greater Bay Area, and one focused broadly across China alternative protein. We also have a number of very significant partners, including Lever VC, Eat Just, and the Good Food Institute, as well as the Food Innovation and Resource Center out of Singapore Polytechnic. Globally, we're obviously very bullish on food tech. I think we've all seen these charts, seeing how there is increased meat consumption and an inability for our planet to be able to supply that demand. What is uniquely interesting, though, is that we've been able to graph the drops in the costs of cellular agriculture. So one of the challenges, of course, that skeptics will point to is just how expensive cell ag is. But we see that, in fact, the cost compression has been even more dramatic than the drop in the cost of transistors, Moore's law, or even genomic sequencing. And the so what of that is that we anticipate that there will be a break even between precision fermentation and cellular agriculture with animal grown protein in the very near future. Now, the general rule of thumb or general market consensus appears to be that we're about 10 years out before cellular agriculture will hit break even with animal grown meat, but it may be even sooner. We see ever encouraging news coming out of Israel, Singapore, and the United States that show that actually the pace of innovation and the drop in the cost curves has been even faster than anticipated. China in particular is of interest to us. So we believe that China will become the world's largest market for alternative protein, and that also forms an incredible opportunity for cellular agriculture in China. That's being driven primarily by food stability issues that China faces, as well as government and consumer support. So even before this whole COVID epidemic, there was the swine flu, which in 2018 led to the spiking of pork prices by 70%. And this is only the latest of many epidemics that China has faced. China also imports a very significant portion of its meat, and that has been subject to trade wars and food price instability as a result of the political situation. And of course, China has been an ever-increasing consumer of meat. So we have made a number of investments within the alternative protein area, both in terms of cellular agriculture, as well as in plant-based meat. We've invested in How Food, which is a low-cost plant-based chicken, and they uniquely have been able to find proprietary technology for being able to form peanut protein into a very versatile chicken-like product. And because they're using peanut protein, they've been able to drop the costs so that How Foods is already below the cost of organic chicken. We also on the plant-based side, we have New Singularity, which is using biomass fermentation and the novel ingredients of algae and mycelium to create shrimp and crustaceans. We also have made 2 investments in cellular agriculture in Greater China. The first, Avant, here in Hong Kong, is cultivated fish products. They started off with fish maw, that is fish collagen, a very high margin product, which is used as a consumable, edible, aesthetic product. They have then now also advanced to also working on fish meat, as well as functional foods, functional products that are being used now in cosmetics. We've also invested more recently in CellX, which is the first mainland China domestic cellular agriculture company working on various cellular agriculture meat products. In the long term, we believe that China will become the largest consumer globally of cultivated meat, but that journey is fraught with numerous hurdles and will be a long process. We believe that in the long term, the Chinese government will be very supportive of cellular agriculture, if only for the reasons of national security and meeting their decarbonization goals and their emissions limit goals. However, while China has already made a number of positive announcements in support of alternative protein, the government has not yet come out with any clear regulations. We believe that this is more or less in line with how China has in the past regulated other technologies. First, they come out with announcements that state broad government support, and then they look for the private sector to step in, and then they will observe how global powers regulate these technology sectors. Then, only once they've had sufficient data from seeing how the rest of the global community regulates a certain sector, then they will start to develop their own regulations. And they might do that in many cases first with small test cases, but eventually they will end up coming out with regulation. Once China makes a decision, once there is sufficient data, they move in very swift and clear ways, but it's often a very significant period of time before that happens. So also worth noting that China also has very strict rules on the sale of foreign GMOs inside of China, and also very strict rules on food import. And so we already are seeing that that is a challenge for foreign brands that want to sell in China. And we believe that that will provide an environment by which the local players have a distinct advantage. Of course, there's other reasons why local players will have a distinct advantage, such as an understanding of local consumer trends and the use of key opinion leaders, social media for making purchasing decisions, and ability to access various local sales channels. However, it's not, and of course the fact that the Chinese consume meat in a very different way in different form factors compared to, say, the United States or Western Europe, which leaves an opportunity for the local variants to be successful, such as minced pork, which works well in a steamed dumpling or works well in a stir fry and has that degree of versatility, something which the international brands have yet to be able to do successfully inside of China. China also has quite a significant community of very strong scientific talents, but so far there's been only limited attention within the Chinese scientific community relative to cellular agriculture. So at some point, we're anticipating, as this cell ag sector develops, that there will be increased interest within the scientific community. So China has the great people, great engineers, great scientists, but they have not yet been focused on cellular agriculture. In fact, where we do see some initial interest in cellular agriculture, it's really coming more from the food tech departments within universities, but less so from the broader scientific community. And if you think about it, cellular agriculture really shouldn't be as much being driven by food science programs, but more from biology, bioengineering, and tissue engineering community. And then one thing that is encouraging is that the Ministry of Science and Technology in 2020 did highlight cellular agriculture and as one of the key areas, and also set up guidelines for the application for grants and R&D. So it is starting to percolate, but we're still early days inside of cellular agriculture inside of China. Now, this is very contrasted to what's happening in plant-based. In plant-based, we actually see quite a large number of companies that have been established. And already the valuations have become quite high and potentially point to the formation of a bubble environment inside of the plant-based space. So, of course, China has one of the most competitive retail environments. It's a very difficult place to make money. And with respect to plant-based, we're talking about chef work, not lab work. And so the degree of technology moat and competitive advantages can be quite limited. So it really is more of an exercise of how does one capture the public's attention? How does one get onto consumers' minds? And this is one area where I think that the plant-based sector in China is still challenged. The uptake within consumers has still been somewhat limited, and we'll circle back to that in a moment. But there is also the challenge of a number of the large traditional food companies inside of China also actively entering this space, which forms potentially some very serious competition for these nascent plant-based meat analog companies. And with respect to the consumer, they have not yet shown significant interest in adopting plant-based alternatives, plant-based analogs. The level of acceptance is still somewhat limited. Ipsos has run a study, and what they've seen is that the primary driver inside of China is both from a novelty standpoint. Chinese consumers have a very broad and willing acceptance of new technologies, including inside of food, but primarily also for the purpose of health. So as you can see, 61% of those who are interested in trying plant-based meat are doing so for health reasons, fat loss, and so forth. So we see that as still being the primary driver. And that's a little bit more pronounced than we have seen in Europe and the United States, where other factors may be more relevant. So didn't want to speak too long. Would like to now open up the floor to questions and see if we can have a back and forth.